gigs, I'm Hondo, and this is my review of the Grez Guitars Mendocino Bass. And the single chain for this one is going to be the bass straight into my Darkglass MT900v2 and then straight into Ableton. So now that you heard the bass already, let's get into some of the specs and the features. This is a 30-inch scale bass, so it's nice and compact. It'll actually fit in most guitar gig bags, which is really nice for traveling because you can put it in the overhead compartment. It's got a mahogany body and a mahogany neck, and it's a semi-hollow body and a set neck construction. It's got 18 frets, and the fretboard is made out of Macassar ebony. Then you have two Curtis Novak lipstick style pickups. And the top is made out of reclaimed old growth redwood, which is really, really cool. Basically the wood for this top and for most of the tops on the Grez guitars is reclaimed from other objects that have been like taken out of commission or are going to get thrown away or destroyed. And this is old growth redwood, so it's had a long time to kind of crystallize, which basically means it's really resonant, which is something you could really hear in this bass. And the control scheme for it is super simple. It's just like an old school jazz bass. It's just volume, volume, and tone. And this one is strung up with flat wound strings. The build time for one of these right now is about 4 to 8 weeks, which, you know, in this current time period of waiting, you know, for back ordered stuff for a million years, that's really, really cool. And for every one of these that's ordered, Grez Guitars make sure that a redwood tree gets planted. So it's all kind of like a sustainable, eco-friendly process, which is really cool. And that's something that I hope more builders do in the future. So the very first thing that kind of struck me about this bass when I picked it up was how light it is and how well built it still feels. This only weighs in at about 5.6 pounds, which is incredibly light. It's probably the lightest bass that I've ever played, if I'm remembering correctly. But at the same time, it still feels nice and solid. Because I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm like judging whether something is well built or not, if it's like really, really light, I tend to feel like it's cheap. But this doesn't feel cheap at all. This feels like it's a really, really well constructed instrument, which is awesome. And then when it comes to the actual sound of the instrument, it's very unique. This has a very kind of like acoustic bloom to the notes that I haven't heard in another bass in my recent memory. But it still has a lot of clarity to it in like the upper mid-range and the treble region, which makes it sound really cool if you're playing it with some distortion or even playing it with a pick. So the big highlights for me with this bass are definitely the playability and kind of the acoustic nature of the sound. Playability wise, you know, this is a short scale bass. I'm a sucker for short scale basses. I played them on the channel a bunch before. I'm not a tall guy and I don't have big hands, so playing short scales is very comfortable for me. But even amongst short scale basses, there's something about this one that just makes the playing feel just really smooth, and it tends to make me want to play lines that I might not otherwise play because I can play them so smoothly on here. It doesn't sound like I'm reaching, if you know what I mean. But that's definitely something that's unique to this bass. I find myself just messing around playing this all the time, even if I'm kind of like zoning off and doing something else. The other thing, like I mentioned before, the mid-range, the kind of upper end of the register has this really kind of like pretty warm kind of sound to it that's not common in a lot of basses that I've played, because a lot of times, you know, I find that when I go higher up on the neck, you tend to get, you know, more clarity, but not necessarily as much body to the note. But with this bass, you keep a lot of that like rich warmth as you're going up the neck, which again, you know, makes me kind of play things I wouldn't normally play because it sounds so good on this bass. So this is definitely a unique sounding instrument, and playing in that upper register is super cool, playing through different types of effects like reverb and delays and choruses and things like that. So as far as who might want to buy one of these basses, this is definitely not a P bass or a Stingray or a jazz bass. So if that's what you want, definitely wouldn't recommend it. This also isn't going to give you any kind of like super modern types of sounds, and doesn't lend itself well to slap. So if any of that stuff is kind of what you're really looking for, then I would say look elsewhere. But if you're looking for something that's got more of a like vintage vibe to it, and is more in like the unique kind of category, this is definitely a bass that you need to take a look at. Like I mentioned earlier, it's got a very particular and very nice blend of having that like acoustic resonance in the lower mid-range and the low end of the sound, while still having clarity in the high end, and having some really nice fullness kind of like everywhere on the neck. And for it to be a 30-inch scale and 18 frets, that's a really cool combination that I don't think you're going to get in a lot of places. And then value-wise, this is around $2,800, which is not cheap, and there's a lot of competition kind of in that price range. But personally, I think given the build quality, the way that this thing plays and the way that it sounds, I think it 100% holds up to the competition, that's for sure. Before you go, don't forget to check the description box below for links for everything that I use in the video, as well as links to my Twitch and my Discord and a brand new podcast that I just started called the HondoFM Podcast. I'm really excited about that one. The first episode, we're talking about basically how to get started recording bass. So if that's something that you're into, definitely check that out. I would greatly appreciate it. But that's about it for this video. If you liked it, here's a couple other ones that you might want to check out. And I hope you're staying happy and staying healthy. And until the next one, take it easy.